Mom, I got into an accident.
Jack, is it really Jack?
Mom, please help me. I'll be arrested if I don't get help.
My daughter-in-law played the role of a mother over the phone with a realistic performance. Someone claiming to be Jack responded on the other end of the line. I witnessed a scam for the first time and was left speechless. I continue to stroke my beloved cat's head in silence. My name is Mary, and I am 67 years old. I'm living in the countryside with the money my husband left me in my pension. My husband passed away suddenly 3 years ago, leaving me behind in a large house in the countryside with only one cat. Although I was left behind, I couldn't bear to leave my familiar home and have been living a quiet life ever since. I have 2 adult sons, both of whom graduated from all-boys schools and chose careers in science and engineering. I had given up hope of ever having grandchildren since they both seemed to have no relationship with women. One day, my eldest son Michael, who had just turned 38, suddenly came to me with a young and beautiful woman named Mia and announced that they were getting married. I was shocked to learn that she was only 25 years old. How did my shy son manage to win the heart of such a young and beautiful woman? The 2 of them quickly filed their marriage papers and even had a photo wedding overseas. Is this what people do these days? I couldn't shake off my doubts, but I could only watch over the newlyweds. Since my son and daughter-in-law rented an apartment in the neighboring town, they often visited me on weekends. Perhaps they were worried about me living alone in a big house. Although my daughter-in-law always came with my son, she never looked me in the eye. Even when I tried to start a conversation, she only gave me simple answers like yes or no, and our conversations always ended quickly. My son was also a man of few words, so I had to rely on the sound of the TV to fill the awkward silence. I told my son several times that they didn't have to come visit me if it was too much trouble, but he only said,
Well, Mia wants to see you.
I was afraid that if I told her directly that she didn't have to come, she might misunderstand me. Every weekend, I felt a knot in my stomach as I waited for them to arrive. My friend Karen was worried about my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law. She also had a bad relationship with her daughter-in-law.
I'm sorry to say this, but your son has no taste in women. It's not just about being young. This is why men are.
Well, but she always eats the food I make and cleans up the dishes, so I don't think she's a bad person.
Even children can do that. If she's a daughter-in-law, she should come to her husband's family and do housework and be a conversation partner for her mother-in-law, right?
Is that so? Is this the relationship between daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law in the world? I like cooking, so I don't mind treating my son and daughter-in-law to a feast, but...
You're too kind. Isn't she from a single-parent family? She hasn't learned the common sense of society. You should be more assertive.
I was confused by my friend's repeated heavy breathing and assertive comments. Yes, my daughter-in-law is from a single-parent family. Apparently, her parents divorced when she was too young to remember, and her mother raised her alone. Since she didn't see her parents' married life, there may be things she doesn't understand. I wonder how I can have a healthy relationship with her? If I express my weakness like this, I'll probably be scolded again by my friend who always says,
You're too kind.
However, I always try to find a peaceful solution to conflicts. One day, while I was struggling with these thoughts, an incident occurred. It was a weekday, and my daughter-in-law, who had a rare day off, came to my house alone. She spoke in a small voice, so I couldn't hear her well, but it seems she brought some vegetables she received from her workplace to share with me. I don't know if it was her intention or my son's instruction, but I couldn't just send her back after she came all the way to visit me on her day off, so we decided to have tea in the living room. Suddenly, the landline phone in my house rang. Nowadays, with cell phones being so common, the only people who would call the landline were my friend Karen or some relatives. So I answered the phone casually, but the person on the other end was unexpected.
Is this the Smith residence? This is the police.
What? Police? I shouted in surprise at the word police. My daughter-in-law was also startled and looked at me. What do the police want with me?
Well, you see, your son got into a traffic accident on his way to work. The victim was seriously injured and taken to the hospital.
A traffic accident.
He hit a pedestrian crossing the street, so he will be subject to a very severe punishment.
That's terrible. Hitting a pedestrian on a crosswalk. I was shocked and speechless. The man claiming to be a police officer continued to speak in a calm tone.
However, the victim's family are kind people, and they won't press charges if the matter can be resolved with money.
Is that so? Based on the situation, my son was definitely in the wrong. I had mixed feelings of gratitude and guilt towards the victim's generous offer, and my thoughts were spinning around in my head.
However, your son has not joined any optional insurance, and it seems that he cannot raise enough money, so you need to prepare about $35,000 for your son.
Yes, $35,000. Huh? I gasped at the number of $35,000. Is the amount reasonable? But before that, something is wrong somewhere. Not enrolled in optional insurance? That's impossible. After all, my sons request annual enrollment from my acquaintance's insurance agency. Huh? Which one caused the accident, the eldest son or the second son? Since the eldest son's wife is here, I had assumed that the second son had caused the accident. Excuse me, is the person there really my son? The man on the phone sighed heavily in response to my timid question.
I understand that you don't want to accept reality. But Jack did cause the accident.
Jack?
Mew.
My beloved cat, who was curled up beside me, raised its head and rubbed against my leg. Jack.
Mew. Her.
Yeah, Jack is a cat. So, what is this phone call about? My daughter-in-law conveyed to me through her smartphone screen to please switch to a call with Jack himself. Can I speak with Jack, please?
I understand. Just for a little while.
While the other person was on hold, my daughter-in-law quickly picked up my receiver. She then began talking to a man claiming to be Jack on the other end of the phone. He sniffed.
Mom.
Jack, is it really you? Why did you get into an accident?
I'm sorry. I didn't notice the pedestrian while playing with my smartphone.
He sniffled.
Well,
Please, Mom. I need money. Otherwise, I'll go to jail.
I understand. I will take care of it.
Mom. Thank you.
I was overwhelmed by my daughter-in-law's realistic performance. It seemed that the man on the other end of the phone had been replaced by the fake cop, So I quickly switched to the phone with my daughter-in-law and went along with a fake cop's story about how to deal with the situation. When the call ended, my daughter-in-law sighed.
It's a typical scam.
I knew it. Oh, but wait. You said you would prepare the money, right?
Yes, I'll contact the real police now. If the fake cop comes, please do your best to act.
Acting? That's impossible. I panicked, but my daughter-in-law firmly held my hand.
It's okay, I'm with you.
Mia. My daughter-in-law didn't look me in the eye and our conversation didn't go well. When I thought about it, it was strange that she visited my house alone at this timing. Can I trust what she says? My friend's warning to be careful with your daughter-in-law also crossed my mind. However, I wanted to believe in my son's innocence and in the woman he chose. Okay, I understand. I made up my mind and decided to trust my daughter-in-law. At the appointed time, 2 fake cops rang the intercom at my house.
This is the police. We've come to collect the settlement money.
Yes. I timidly showed my face, and the 2 men loosened their lips with a triumphant expression. But, is it really Jack? He's so serious and cute. It's hard to believe that Jack caused an accident.
You still don't believe it? Look at this. It's Jack Smith's arrest warrant. If you don't prepare the settlement money right away, we'll have to execute this.
The document presented had Jack Smith written on it. Well, Jack, you're driving without a license.
Mew?
Jack, who was at my feet, approached me with a meowing voice. But the fake cop didn't notice anything.
Without a license? That's even worse.
Jack, you're driving with those cute little hands of yours.
Mew.
Huh?
The fake cop felt something was off about my words and gaze, and looked down at Jack. Jack, are you hungry? Shall I feed you?
Mew.
I held Jack, who was excited by the word food, and faced the fake cop. This is our 3rd son, Jack Smith.
What?
The fake cop jumped up in surprise. I lifted Jack's front paw and said with a sarcastic smile, I'm sorry for causing an accident, Mew. The fake cops were red-faced after being hit by a huge boomerang. One of them said,
What are you talking about? You're deceiving the police.
I replied, but you said Jack caused the accident.
You old fool. Deceiving the police is a serious crime. You'll be fined.
You are the ones deceiving us.
What?
At that moment, my daughter-in-law and a real police officer who were waiting in the living room jumped out.
You guys are the ones deceiving us with such a random phone call. It's funny that you actually came to our house.
What? No way.
Let's hear the details at the police station.
The fraudsters tried to leave the entrance in a hurry, but they were stopped by another unit waiting outside.
No way.
The police officer surrounded the fraudsters who were sitting down in despair. While looking at it, I took a deep breath and said, "Oh, my heart is pounding."
You were like a leading actress.
That's because the scenario and acting guidance were good. My daughter-in-law chuckled at my response. I smiled with my daughter-in-law. Her smile was very cute, and it was the first time I had seen it. However, the incident was not over yet. Just as we finished the police questioning and returned home, the intercom rang loudly. On the monitor, Karen, my friend, was standing in a fierce pose. I opened the door with determination because I expected this to happen due to the police's story.
My son was taken away by the police because of you. You deceived him and called him to this house. Clear up the misunderstanding.
She started off with this. Yes, one of the two fraudsters was Karen's son. I heard that Karen's son and his wife got divorced because of Karen's bullying of her daughter-in-law and his cheating, and he was sued for a large amount of compensation by his ex-wife. It seemed that his divorce caused a scandal involving his company, and he was fired and couldn't find a new job, and he was in a lot of financial trouble. At that time, Karen told her son that I was a kind-hearted old lady living alone with my husband's inheritance and that I had two sons. Karen's son, who was blinded by money, then planned this crime with his friend. The reason why our family information was subtly leaked was because it was a crime committed by someone close. The plan was sloppy because it was thought up by amateurs. It seems that Karen did not lend a hand, but it is true that her son came up with a crime from her gossip. Even so, I was going to forgive her if she apologized for her son's wrongdoing. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work that way. Her eyes were filled with hatred, and she pointed her blade at me. I didn't deceive you. I just reported it to the police because I thought it was a fraud.
If you had told me from the beginning that Jack was a cat, my son would have given up on the fraud.
We don't need such compassion for swindlers.
No.
She stomped her feet in frustration.
My son and I are in trouble. If you're a friend, please help us with some money.
She was screaming something that didn't make sense. I won't waste the money my husband worked hard to leave behind by helping criminals or people without morals.
No way. That's not fair. Why are you the only one who's so lucky? My ex-daughter-in-law has no manners, so I just tried to discipline her a little, but she ran away. And my son's infidelity is a sign of his manhood. It's unfair.
Huh?
I thought you were a poor woman living on a pension who couldn't even have any grandchildren, so I was being nice to you. But your son got a young wife and you have a lot of your husband's inheritance.
I had been looked down upon like this by her I trusted as a friend. Shock and anger welled up inside me. Don't treat my daughter like an object.
That's what I hate about you hypocrites.
She looked up at the sky and howled like a wolf.
Give me money. $35,000. Quickly. Your friend is in trouble.
I'm not your friend anymore.
No way. If you get too cocky, you'll regret it. Be prepared.
Is that a threat?
A threat? Humph. If you want to know if it's a threat or not, why don't you try walking alone on the streets at night?
I see. I'm naive and too trusting, so I'm not used to this kind of thing. That's why I'll report everything you just said to the police.
Huh?
Time seemed to stand still as her face froze in a demonic expression. At that moment, my daughter-in-law appeared from the living room and shook her smartphone.
I recorded your scary threats perfectly.
Karen's face turned pale in an instant.
You set me up, didn't you?
You dug your own grave?
You are being taken advantage of by her who grew up with a single parent like that.
Even if both parents are present, there's always a chance that their child will grow up to be a criminal like your son.
No.
She let out a final scream and ran away. After that, I sat down with my son and daughter-in-law and talked for a long time. It turns out that my daughter-in-law had been trying hard to find a way to get close to me. She grew up in a single-parent household and had grown tired of her mother, who kept moving from man to man. Despite this, she felt a motherly love for me, her husband's mother.
I was really happy when you talked to me and made delicious food for me. But I don't have any education or common sense, so I'm always worried about being rude or disliked.
Mia. It seems that even when she was young and living alone, she had honed her skills to fend off solicitation calls, which helped her act as my substitute during a phone scam. She also came to my house alone for the first time because she was worried about a suspicious man who had been looking at our house the day before. I hugged her tightly, feeling her awkwardness and shyness, which were more pronounced than mine, despite her being a size larger than me. Thank you. I'm really, really happy that a strong and kind person like you became my daughter-in-law.
Mom.
Yeah, Mia is a good girl, and Mom is kind. I thought you two would get along.
I glared at my son, who nodded in satisfaction. You need to learn to be more considerate of others. Mia, don't hesitate to do what you want.
I'm sorry.
As my son scratched his head, my daughter-in-law giggled. I wish from the bottom of my heart that I would see that smile many times in the future. 5 years later.
Jack. Let's play.
Come down.
Mew.
Afraid of being jostled by my grandchildren, Jack ran up to the top of the refrigerator.
Jack, calm down.
Come here.
Mew.
Jack's dutifulness in answering when called by name was still the same. As I watched this scene with a smile, my daughter-in-law spoke to me.
Mom, I heard that there have been many phone scams in the city recently. Are you okay?
I'm fine. If Jack gets another call, I'll just chase them away with a bang.
Oh, Mom.
My daughter-in-law laughed heartily. I laughed along with her. Jack, who thought he was being called, responded with a good mew.
How was this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
Oh, where are you now? We've already arrived at the hotel.
I was filled with anger at my mother-in-law's irritating words. Please stop it. Did you invite me with that intention from the beginning?
Don't say such things. I didn't realize you weren't here.
That's not true.
It's too late to come and pick you up now. Why don't you camp out there alone?
That's hilarious. Do it.
I could hear my sister-in-law's voice over the phone. My father-in-law and Cyrus are probably not nearby now.
It's a family trip, so don't bother us.
You're a nuisance when you're around.
They shouldn't have invited me in the first place if they were going to do something like this. My name is Valentina, and I'm a 26-year-old housewife. My husband, Cyrus, was originally my senior at work. I was attracted to his reliable and capable work, and we started dating, which led to marriage after a few years. Soon after we got married, we decided to live with my in-laws. I really wanted to live with just the two of us, but my mother-in-law suggested it.
Since you're coming to be my daughter-in-law, it's only natural that you live with us.
That's not relevant nowadays, is it? Both of you are still healthy.
Cyrus said that, but I couldn't refuse too strongly. I wanted to get along with my in-laws, and I didn't want to argue with my mother-in-law right after getting married. I decided to do as my mother-in-law said and nodded. I'm okay with living together.
Really? Well, if Valentina says so, I'm okay with it too.
Okay then. Nice to meet you, Valentina.
But looking back now, I should have refused with Cyrus at that time. Because since we started living together, I've been bullied by my mother-in-law almost every day.
Valentina, have you taken out the garbage?
No, not yet.
Why haven't you done it yet?
I was planning to do it all at once after finishing the morning cleaning.
Don't do whatever you want. You have to follow our way of doing things.
I thought I was acting efficiently to help in any way I could, but to my mother-in-law, I must have looked like an uncooperative daughter-in-law. I'm sorry. I'll take out the garbage right away.
This isn't your home. You have to follow our way of doing things.
Okay.
After taking out the garbage, you also need to clean the toilet, the bath, and do the dishes. You're a housewife, but you can't even do housework properly?
My mother-in-law complained like that, pushed all the housework onto me, and started watching a movie she had recorded while lying down on the sofa. I thought we would share the housework, but did my mother-in-law intend to push everything onto me from the beginning when she suggested we live together? I had no choice but to put up with it and do the housework every day, even though I thought it was unfair. And there's another person who harasses me. It's my sister-in-law, Cecilia. Cecilia graduated from college but hasn't found a job and has been living at home, playing every day. My mother-in-law seems to be very fond of her and spoils her. I didn't want to interfere with her situation, so I didn't mind at first. However, Cecilia began to treat me like a servant.
I want you to drive me to the station because I'm going to hang out with my friends today.
What? Now? Even though it was obvious that I was busy with housework, she asked me to do this. The station wasn't far away, so I could go there alone if I wanted to walk, but Cecilia always asked me to drive her. Can I do it after I finish hanging the laundry?
That would make me late for my appointment.
Cecilia's requests were always sudden. Okay. It would be helpful if you could tell me a little earlier next time. I also have my own schedule. I smiled, suppressing my anger at Cecilia's attitude of asking for things without considering my situation.
It was decided suddenly.
Cecilia answered without looking at me, staring at her phone. Is this how you ask someone for a favor? She's already an adult. I couldn't suppress my irritation with Cecilia, but I didn't show it on my face and took her to the station.
I'll probably be back around 10 p.m.
Cecilia only told me her return schedule without thanking me for the ride. She speaks as if it's natural for me to pick her up, but couldn't she at least show some gratitude? Does she still think I'm some kind of servant or something? But since I'm not related by blood, I can't get angry with Cecilia. If I make even a slight sarcastic remark, she'll probably report it to my mother-in-law. And then I'll get a lecture from her. That would be a hassle. I don't want to cause any trouble. so I had no choice but to put up with Cecilia's selfishness and listen to her. When I returned home with a sense of frustration, my mother-in-law yelled at me.
Hey! The laundry isn't done yet. Hang it up right away after you're done washing it. Otherwise, it'll smell.
I asked Cecilia if it was okay to do it after the laundry was finished, considering that she was going to be late. But I had to interrupt my work and take her because she said she would be late. Nevertheless, my mother-in-law was angry with me. It's really unreasonable.
Why can't you do housework in order?
I have to take Cecilia to the station.
No excuses. Do the laundry again.
In the end, I had to start the laundry all over again. I sighed and went back to doing housework. During the day, I'm being bossed around by my mother-in-law and Cecilia every day. But when Cyrus and my father-in-law come home from work, my mother-in-law's attitude changes completely.
Valentina, thank you for your hard work today. Thanks to you, the housework went smoothly.
She says such things with a smile. At first, I was confused by this change in attitude, but now I'm used to it.
How was dinner today? I made it while Valentina was teaching me. Is it delicious?
Yeah, it's delicious. The flavor is just right.
Really? I'm glad.
She probably doesn't want Cyrus and my father-in-law to think that she's pushing all the housework onto me. She speaks about cooking as if she made it herself. And in front of the two of them, my mother-in-law and Cecilia pretend to get along with me. Because of this, Cyrus and my father-in-law don't realize that I'm being bullied by the two of them. I've thought about consulting him about my mother-in-law and Cecilia several times, but I've always held back. Cyrus was close to both my mother-in-law and Cecilia, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything that would ruin the family relationship. But unfortunately, my faint hope that things would get better if I just put up with it never came true, and the harassment only escalated.
I wonder why Cyrus chose Valentina.
Cyrus has never had a good eye for people, so maybe he chose the wrong person?
Poor thing.
Recently, I've heard such backbiting comments that I can hear. As usual, the attitudes of the two have not changed, and Cecilia treats me like a servant and makes selfish demands. My mother-in-law pushes housework onto me and has recently started going shopping. Nevertheless, I didn't complain and managed to get by somehow. Then one day, Cecilia suddenly started saying that she wanted to go on a family trip.
How about going on a trip? We haven't gone as a family recently, have we?
That's a good idea. I was just thinking about wanting to go too.
The two of them invited my father-in-law and Cyrus with shining eyes.
A trip. Huh?
Right? It's good, isn't it? Even Dad must be tired. Go on a trip and relax.
That's right. Should we go on our next day off?
Let's do it.
It's something that Cecilia and mother-in-law have suggested anyway. I'll probably be left behind because I'm not just a family member. I thought that and didn't participate in the conversation. Then Cecilia asked me,
Valentina, you're going too, right?
Huh? Me too?
Of course. We're family.
Valentina should go too. She always works hard at housework.
I have a bad feeling about the two of them.
That's right. Valentina, don't hesitate and come with us.
In the end, I decided to participate in the trip because Cyrus said so, even though the two of them suggested it. On the day of the trip, Cyrus was driving, so I sat in the passenger seat. Since my father-in-law and Cyrus were also there today, I was relieved that they wouldn't blatantly harass me. I was so relieved. However, the incident occurred when we stopped at a rest area. On the way to the hotel on the highway, Cecilia started saying that she wanted to go to the restroom.
Huh? But we'll arrive at the hotel soon. It's just around the corner if we get off at the next exit.
Just stop at the rest area.
Okay.
Since she couldn't hold it, we had no choice but to stop at the rest area. Cecilia, my father-in-law, and Cyrus went to the restroom together, and my mother-in-law got off to throw away empty plastic bottles and trash. I didn't particularly want to go to the restroom, so I decided to wait in the car. When my mother-in-law finished throwing away the trash and returned to the car.
You should go to the restroom too.
No, I'm fine.
There's no more restroom ahead.
But Cyrus said we're already arriving at the hotel. Despite my refusal, my mother-in-law is trying to make me go to the restroom.
That's true, but it'll take a little longer. It would be a nuisance if you said you wanted to go to the restroom during that time, so go now.
I understand. My mother-in-law was so persistent that I reluctantly went to the restroom. I hurried to move so as not to keep everyone waiting. When I returned to the car as soon as possible, the car was no longer parked where it had been parked until a while ago. What's going on? I was stunned for a while, but I finally understood. I was left behind in a rest area with nothing. I panicked and tried to contact Cyrus, but the phone didn't connect. He probably didn't notice because he was driving. I called my mother-in-law, but she didn't answer the phone either. A small rest area with nothing but a restroom. I was full of miserable feelings after being left behind in such a place. If I was going to be harassed like this, I should have refused the trip from the beginning. Then, 30 minutes later, my mother-in-law called me.
Oh, where are you now? We've already arrived at the hotel.
I was filled with anger at my mother-in-law's irritating words. Please stop it. Did you invite me with that intention from the beginning?
Don't say such things. I didn't realize you weren't here.
That's not true.
It's too late to come and pick you up now. Why don't you camp out there alone?
That's hilarious. Do it.
I could hear Cecilia's voice over the phone. My father-in-law and Cyrus are probably not nearby now.
It's a family trip, so don't bother us.
You're a nuisance when you're around.
They shouldn't have invited me in the first place if they were going to do something like this.
Don't come here. Catch a taxi or something and go back to your parents' house.
Even if you say taxi, this is a highway, you know?
Then why don't you hitchhike? Well, no one comes to such a deserted rest area anyway.
That's why we won't call you anymore. We'll explain it to Cyrus and your father properly.
My mother-in-law unilaterally hung up the phone after saying that. What should I do now? When I was at a loss, a familiar car arrived. Huh? Cyrus?
Sorry.
The car was driven by Cyrus and my father-in-law. The two of them, who I thought had been skillfully manipulated by my mother-in-law, came to pick me up. Why did you come?
Actually, I knew.
They were harassing Valentina, and they were planning to leave Valentina behind today.
What do you mean? According to the story of my father-in-law and Cyrus, they had actually noticed that I was being bullied by them for some time. My father-in-law had even warned my mother-in-law to get along with me many times, but my mother-in-law stubbornly insisted that we were getting along well. In addition, since I didn't consult with anyone, they couldn't be sure if I was really being bullied. However, a few days ago, they happened to hear that my mother-in-law and Cecilia were planning to leave me behind, and finally became convinced.
So my father and I planned to punish my mother and Cecilia instead.
What kind of plan?
Leave the two of them behind at the hotel and let's go home.
What? I was surprised because I never thought that they would think of such a thing.
So we pretended to go along with my mother's act and left Valentina behind, even though I'm sorry for Valentina.
But even so, isn't it strange that my mother said that Valentina met her friend and decided to go on a trip with her?
Yes.
I see.
They seem to think that we will pay for everything, and they didn't even bring their wallets. They'll be in trouble when we leave.
Is it okay to do that? I was happy that they said that, but if they took my side, the relationship between the family would be completely ruined. However, Cyrus laughed nonchalantly despite my anxiety.
It's okay. My father and I were dissatisfied with those two from the beginning. And I won't forgive them for hurting Valentina.
I cried out of happiness and relief.
I'm sorry until now. I couldn't help you even though you were suffering.
But I know Valentina was the one who had been cooking until now. She said she made it herself, but her cooking isn't that good, so I noticed.
My father-in-law also said that and smiled kindly. So we left my mother-in-law and Cecilia behind at the hotel and went back to my in-laws' house. By the time we got home, my mother-in-law finally called Cyrus. But Cyrus ignored it. Then my father-in-law received a call, but he ignored it too. Then I received a call.
Where are you now?
My mother-in-law shouted. I'm already home, I replied.
How did you get home?
Cyrus and my father-in-law came to pick me up, so I was able to come home.
What? How did that happen?
My mother-in-law started shouting, so I handed the phone over to Cyrus.
I know that you've been harassing Valentina until now. And I knew you were planning to leave Valentina behind at the rest stop this time.
What?
Also, I know that you've been tricking money out of me and my father for a while.
No, that's not true.
My mother-in-law was flustered on the phone. Apparently, the two of them had been asking for money from my father-in-law and Cyrus by making up various reasons. And they had been buying whatever they wanted with that money.
Cyrus and I have had enough. Neither of you should ever come back.
Finally, my father-in-law said that and hung up the phone. After that, the two of them called us many times, but we didn't answer. The two of them who couldn't return from the hotel left secretly in the middle of the night and returned home by taxi. Since they didn't have any money, Cyrus and my father-in-law had to pay for the hotel and taxi. In exchange, they decided to kick the two of them out of the house. The two of them cried to me until the end, but of course I couldn't forgive them.
I'll never forget what you did to me, and I won't forgive you.
What are we supposed to do now? We don't even have jobs.
That's why you should work. Is Cecilia planning to stay unemployed forever? We sent her to college, and she's still not working.
Well, that's...
From now on, live on your own strength.
After that, my father-in-law divorced my mother-in-law and cut off ties with Cecilia. Now they live in a shabby apartment, working part-time jobs and living a frugal life. On the other hand, I live a relaxed life with my father-in-law and Cyrus. I enjoy doing housework without being harassed. I am truly grateful to my father-in-law and Cyrus for choosing me over my mother-in-law and Cecilia.
How was today's story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.